we are reminded that like our traditional world was not divided neatly into these gender binaries, as has been the discussion provided by Ratna and Jairaj throughout the play, that look, if you look through the ancient practices in which is talking about the world before colonial modernity comes in, that these gender divisions of man and women were not decided like it is decided. That's why she says in Kuchipudi men dress up as women, and that's not a problem at all. And later we are also told that like in some places, in some places where Ratna has felt vulnerable in terms of acting, and we are told specifically about an army performance where Jairaj actually goes dressed up as a woman. And if you are looking at those kinds of performative details, and he says that he got a compliment because they thought it was a woman, but when they found out that it was Jairaj who was dancing as a woman, they were thrilled that like, oh, we didn't even get to know. So those kinds of discussions are questioned, that like, does it the visage or those kinds of performances, that's what makes gender for us. And these are kind of questions that Dattani again and again asks us to ponder over, that what exactly, how do we think about gender? We seem to think of gender very reductively because we are caught in those kinds of binary ideas of the world, and we do not seem to, and we seem to be very fragile and insecure about our identities itself, that that if we have, if we do not stick to those rigid ideas about the world and reductive ideas of the world, then somewhere our identities are in crisis in that sense, like as a man or a woman. And to force this point of gender binaries, as we see, you will see that once Amritlal is talking about not having, asking Jairaj to not have long hair, and like the guru, why does he have long hair? He seems that that long hair seems to bring in a certain association of femininity, which seems to compromise Jairaj's masculinity. And then somewhere Amritlal feels threatened from that kind of a performance of gender itself, that like somewhere that violation of neat rigid boundaries of gender by the guru having long hair threatens him in some way and threatens his household. Jairaj does not seem to have certain such insecurities. Jairaj rather believes that because he is performing this dance, his masculinity is never being challenged. His masculinity is being challenged in different ways around him. We'll come to those discussions in a bit. But if we go back to the previous discussion, that where Amritlal says that I don't want I don't want you to visit that woman again. I won't feel necessary to restrict your movement. And he says that these are things which are creating fissures in his personal life itself. So Amritlal is desperate to cling to his masculine ideas, because people might think that your daughter-in-law is visiting a prostitute's house, so that will bring a problem to his household. Nevertheless, even though he is a reformist, and then Jairaj tries to poke at this, that like then people should think better, no? That like you are a reformist, that's why your household people are involved in elevating the lives of these kinds of prostitutes, let's say. But Jairaj, Amritlal is very stubborn, and therefore Amritlal tries to talk to Ratna. Then he says that like, asks Ratna, where are you going, and tells her that I don't want you seeing that woman again. That's final, and all that I have to say, you may go. I have sorry I kept you from jingling your bells. Very derogatory way of talking about the dance. My request is that you finish your sessions with as quickly as you can say, and see that your Guruji leaves before my visitors arrive. God forbid they should bump into one another. That this respectable visitors may be corrupted by this long-haired feminine guru dancer. So one can see clear binaries in which Amritlal is thinking that this long hair one is like somewhere insulting him or threatening his entire masculinity, and people who are visiting him, they might think that he's a respectable person, Amritlal Parekh, as he says, the Sethji of the city, and in his house some kind of immoral, illegal activities are happening, which might actually which might subvert his entire ideal, and then Dattani is constantly making fun of it, almost mocking at it. So does Ratna. Ratna says, "Oh, you are worried about the guru with the long hair, and you are worried about my movement. Now you know what is happening, that Jairaj starts learning another dance from tomorrow, Kuchipudi, in which men dress up as women. So if you are worried about that, here he is going to dress up now as women." And she laughs and thinks about how she has defeated this binary itself, and this kind of a binary idea is mocked by both of them again and again in the face of Amritlal. And then we see more and more of this coming again. Obviously, Amritlal is not defeated because he finds new ways of establishing those boundaries, and this is one again aspect of gender that we see. The more and more and it's almost creates a vicious cycle of it. The more we insist on this kind of a gender divide, one sees a strong opposition, as we see from both Jairaj and Ratna in this case, where Jairaj and Ratna seem to mock his entire idea of Amritlal, where he is insistent that they should not visit the Devadasi, and he should not keep his hair long. So if Ratna should not visit the Devadasi, Jairaj should not keep his hair long, right? In that way, Amritlal wants to maintain the sanctity of these gender binaries, and they seem to be constantly subverting this. The subversion takes one step further, where Jairaj learns Kuchipudi, which will be subverting the entire boundary by men being dressed as women. So you see a kind of a crossing over of that binary. The stronger opposition that comes from this kind of gender divide again meets another strong force to establish the divide. So it's a force that creates an opposite force, and then that opposite force also gives way to another stronger bout of this division being again strengthened, right? So Amritlal finds that opportunity when Jairaj and Ratna, after leaving his house, come back to it. We'll look at that point. As I had mentioned, that like Jairaj and Ratna step out of the house being suffocated by these kinds of restrictive and narrow-minded ideas of Amritlal, but only for a few hours. As she says, you could not stay out 48 hours. They come back because there is a threat of sexual assault, and so you can again see the discussion on masculine, feminine, and the threat of on femininity itself, like sexual violence and all other ideas. And that idea is also there when we are constantly talked about prostitution and Devadasis being pushed into the profession of prostitution, the threat of masculinity looming large over femininity itself, and they come back to Amritlal's house, and that's what the second act opens with, because they don't have any other place. It's the 1940s. The younger Jairaj and Ratna are standing patiently while Amritlal censures them. There is a paper on the coffee table. It's 2 days after Ratna and Jairaj had left home. Evidently, they have come back defeated. And Amritlal says he has his own things to say. He has conditions. What are the first conditions? Don't grow your hair any longer. Jairaj exists, and you not learn from anyone else. You understand that you can't go out. As I said, the binary presents an opposing force from Jairaj and Ratna, who are subverting all ideals by growing hair. Jairaj learning kuchipudi, which will allow him to done the roles of women, and Ratna going and learning from the Devdasi herself. Now, thanks to their defeat and thanks to their financial constraints, they come back into the space of binary itself. So, if Act 1 was about this, Act 2 is how these opposing forces come back into the fold of the binary itself, and Amritlal ensures that binaries stay there, and we will see how those how the enforcing of that binary leads to the almost the dissolution of their marriage. So, masculinity discourse comes back in very interesting and different complex ways. So, he says don't grow your hair any longer to Jairaj, and you will not learn from anyone else. So, and you can see the kind of sarcasm and everything that is there in Ratna's remarks, that you are very kind. And Ratna, if you look at in the first act itself, the interactions are very caustic, and Ratna hides a sarcasm in the way that she speaks of matter of fact to Amritlal itself. Ratna sarcastically, you are very kind, are you? Can't you tell? Then Amritlal pauses and starts discussing Jairaj. Do you know where a man's happiness lies? No, in being a man. Ratna says that sounds profound. What does it mean? It's almost tautological. That what is the where does the man's happiness lies? In being a man. And then Amritlal elaborates in what are the ways in which a man becomes a man. And Butler will tell us that even within these traditional conservative assertions, one can see the highlighting of performance, that a man becomes a man. In being a man, how are you a man? In being a man means you will do certain things some way in iterations, iterative gestures, repeated gestures throughout life, so that you have hair in a certain way that counts as like in being man, in you act in certain ways that counts as man, you don't cry, or some other conventional ideas that like men don't cry, all those ideas are there, right? So, in these repetitive acts you become a man, and that's what he elaborates on. Does Jairaj know where his happiness lies? He does, but I don't think it fits your idea of where it should be. Yes, I am aware of that, and I am disappointed with that. I am sorry that you are disappointed. There is nothing much you can do. Then he says, you can do a lot. I don't think I know what you mean, Ratna says. I have seen the world, and I can recognize a clever woman when I see one. Thank you. And then he asks, how good a dancer is he? Who's the better dancer among you? So, you can see application of divide and rule between them, that like divide the pair and see which one is a better dancer among you. So, that you marry him would let you dance, that too. More of that than the first, yes, So, you are intelligent enough to realize now that the decision to let you dance is in my hands, not his. You have made that very clear. Don't worry, I have no intention of stopping you. I'll let you dance. You can see the patriarchy coming through, that I will let you dance. And Jairaj, you don't want to prevent him from dancing, don't you, in spite of what you said? Then then Dattani provides Amritlal with one of the more famous lines from his oeuvre, where he encapsulates the conservative ideas about masculinity. A woman in a man's world may be considered as being progressive, but a man in a woman's world is pathetic. Again, how does he do it? By dividing man and women's worlds. That, like, what are the spheres in which men are supposed to be, what are the ways men are supposed to be, what are the spaces that women are supposed to be. So men are supposed to be on cricket field. That's what he said, right, earlier. You remember that, like, he was like, you should have been in the cricket field. I would have built one because men like cricket. So that's an acceptable space. Dance is a women's field. So women can dance. That's why he lets her dance, because that will also reflect on his reformist, progressive values. And these reformist, progressive values are very masculine, is what Dattani seems to be enforcing, and we'll talk about this. A woman should dance, and that's why he's saying, when a man gets into this sphere of women, he's pathetic. But a woman coming into this sphere is considered progressive. Outlines very reductive worldviews that do not behold a progressive, forward-looking nation itself, right? A nation which has come out of the clutches of colonialism and wants to construct a world for themselves in a new way should not be thinking in these kinds of reductive ideas, right? And Ratna tells him that maybe we aren't progressive enough, and progressive within quotes, because these don't fit into those traditional ideas of Amritlal, who is pretending to be progressive. That isn't being progressive, that is sick. He calls dancing by men sick. Why didn't you tell him that he could dance? And he then asks her that, help me make him an adult, help me help him to grow up. How? It is hard for me to explain. I leave it to you. Help me and I'll never prevent you from dancing. I know it will take time, but it must be done. I will try. You have to do better than that. And by the end of the act, we are told she does make him, she does manipulate Jairaj and stops him from dancing, which leads him into drunken states. What she did was, bit by bit, you took it when you insisted on top billing in all our programs. You took it when you made me dance my weakest items. You took it when you arranged the lighting so that I was literally dancing in your shadows. When you called me names in front of other people, names I feel ashamed to repeat even in private, and you call me disgusting. And he says that he was asked to do anything except be a dancer, do something useful like choreography items or playing the flute. In public, he can't be a dancer, and that's what Ratna colluded with Amritlal to do. That, like, Jairaj cannot be a dancer. So, which was eventually a way to make him a man, or a process of adulting, that he becomes a man, actually leads him to drunkenness. That he feels defeated, he actually does not feel like a man, because what he wanted to do was not, he was not allowed to do those things. So one can see the complexity of the entire event unfolding, where you see that constantly we are being told how masculinity is a performance, and that performance is so central to the idea of maintaining a household or relationships itself. And the critique is very pointed. The critique is towards how the nation probably is insistent on a very reductive idea of masculine itself, and anything that threatens that idea has to be subdued, and in a way that can also break. And then what Dattani shows by that, that like by harping on such ideas of masculinity, you are actually breaking people itself. So what is the nation's idea of this kind of masculinity itself is what is under scanner from Dattani.